Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be taking a first look at a brand new game developed by Little Red Dog Games and published by Modern Wolf. That game is called Rogue State Revolution. This game is coming out on March 18th, so just one day away. That'll be coming out tomorrow. It kind of markets itself as a little bit like a roguelike, which I don't do a lot of roguelike games. I think I might have covered one on my channel ever, so it'll be interesting to see how I feel about this. The reason I'm playing Rogue State Revolution is it is the newest game in the Rogue State series. So the first Rogue State game, I think it was just called Rogue State, and you were basically the ruler of a provisional government that came to power in a country called Basenji, and essentially it was almost like a president simulator, right? Like you sat behind a desk and your advisors came to you with issues and you had to try and get your country back on its feet and invest your limited resources where you could to try and, make your country stronger and moving forward. And I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. There were like sometimes depending on the game you were playing, you could run into like one of your neighbors would be like just a bunch of chickens, literally, and like they would just like balk at you, and sometimes you didn't know what they were saying. But then it also has dealing with politics, like between the U.S. and your country, and a lot of sort of developing nations type politics. And so I think it was a really well done and interesting game that sort of mixed lightheartedness with kind of serious issues that are facing a lot of developing nations. This one looks like a little bit more of sort of a traditional city builder. I don't know if I'd call it a 4X game or really a city builder. That may be a inaccurate description, but basically you get a map of your country and you have to build things up. So, and the other game was essentially you never left your office. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays. With that being said, that's enough of me rambling about it. Let's go ahead and jump into the game. So you can see here when you jump into a new game, you've got three options. You've got the Teach Me How to Play, which basically starts the game with a tutorial. You've got, a more advanced version of it where I think you skip the tutorial. And then you also have sort of an even more advanced method where you're sort of a min-maxing statistical tyrannosaur. We're going to go with the Teach Me How to Play. This video will probably mostly be going through the tutorial, but I think it'll do a good job of giving us some initial impressions of the game. So let's go ahead and jump in. So you can see here when you go into the game, you've got a couple of options. You can turn the storyline on or off. Play if never seen. Okay. You can also get news updates. There's subtitles. You can have a gentle start where the first few months are sort of guided. That's the tutorial. Advisor help where your advisors make recommendations. You can turn off things like pandemics. You can turn off like the thing with the neighboring countries being made up of chickens, or some of them anyway. Apparently there's something about murder hornets or wasps that I'm not familiar with. And then really the meat of the settings here: minister expectations, public expectations, geography, which I wonder if this changes at all. It looks like you can change your geography, so that's a little bit more city builder sort of map development like. You've also got the density of how many cities you have, rebellion, are there bad guys around. The BLF is sort of the Basenji Liberation Front. They're kind of insurgents. Foreign policy, economics, and insight all have different settings that you can choose. We're going to go with normal difficulty and just jump in. What's our name going to be? What should our name be? I guess we'll just go with Butcher. That seems fitting for the channel. Hopefully I don't get my country butchered, but we'll see. All right, 2012 to 2017. Upon the conclusion of the Basenji Revolution, King Solomon and several prominent members of the royal family were forced into exile. With the monarchy disbanded, the nation was renamed the People's Republic of Basenji. The Revolutionary Council unanimously voted to entrust the leadership of the country to the glorious leader, Turek al-Falida, for 5 years. So that was, I believe, our character in the last game. So we're moving past the transitional government to an actual democracy here. So you get kind of this It's almost like a Groundhog Day start here, where it's like, and this is how the trailer also reads, where it's like, well, that ended badly, you know, inauguration a day again. So again, it's almost like a Groundhog Day type deal, where you're waking up after being defeated and being brought right back into the beginning of a new game, which is interesting, I guess. One of the other things I will say about this game is it has a lot of, or I believe, I haven't played it really, but it has a lot of cutscenes with like videos that kind of, it has a almost like 1990s sort of like Red Alert sort of vibe. Although these are pretty well produced cutscenes, I'll say.
Has come to Basenji. For the first time in their turbulent history, both Basenji
so you can see here the news guy is giving an overview of what the situation is here. So the transitional government from 5 years ago has been replaced with our sort of democracy, our democratically elected party, which is the first democratically elected party in our country's history, and giving just the overview of the situation right now. I believe we're a nationalist, based on, it said the Nationalist Party swept.
My name is Surveyor. I have been assigned as your political strategist.
And I am Yusuf. I will be serving as your military attaché.
So we have a military attaché and a political strategist, and now they're giving us an overview basically saying that we need to pick our cabinet ministers here to help us along the way.
They cannot be removed from office.
Indeed. You will be stuck with these ministers, for better or worse. I would advise you listen to their needs.
And I say look for loyalty. There will be hard days ahead. We will need a cabinet that is on our side, no matter what.
I kind of like the cutscenes, even though they're a little bit silly. So it's going to bring us into letting us know that we need to appoint a cabinet. I think we have 4 cabinet ministers that we need to pick from to start. So we need to pick a Minister of Development, a Minister of Defense, Finance, and Resources. You can see that we are given, it looks like 7 options down here on the bottom. As you play through the game multiple times, I believe, you unlock additional cabinet ministers. But you can see here you have got 7 different ministers. Not every minister can be can be put into each position. And when you hover over a minister, you get a little bit of information. So this first guy, Aziz El Kamil, you can see up on the upper left, our military advisor is giving us some information saying that he's frugal, which means his construction costs will be lower for buildings related to the ministry. But it also says that he's cunning. When you move over here to Sabria, she tells us that he's cunning, which is a negative trait. So it seems like most of these people have one positive and one negative trait. That is important to keep in mind, especially when you're, I don't know that I'd want to put someone who's selfish into the Ministry of Finance, right? We want to make sure that we've got a loyal individual there, or someone who's not going to steal money. So let's go through this first. It looks like the first 2 guys, the first guy and the first girl, are both conservatives. One's secular, one's religious. We can put the religious one into either the Ministry of Natural Resources, Noor, or the Ministry of Development. Meanwhile, we can put Aziz El Kamili into the Ministry of Development or Resources, as well as the Ministry of Finance. You can see that Kamili is frugal and cunning. Again, that means construction costs are lower, but he may alter policies on his own without my consent. We have Noor Al-Haidi. She is pious, so she gains favor points we start with 3 favor points on her end. But she's also tactless, so other people don't like her a whole lot because she's a little bit brusque. We have Nader Adid, who is inspiring, so he will lead civilian units to his department, get free upgrades, but poor health, which means he could die at any time or never. And he's a conservative religious. We also have Aden Ilai, who is resourceful and a moron. I don't know how those 2 traits work together, but apparently he gets extra event options to that ministry, but he also, the unlock rate of new policies is slower. Don't quite understand how those 2 work together. He's a religious liberal. We have a secular liberal in Kareem Suleiman. I wonder if he's related to the former king. I think that was the last name of the former king. He's popular but also selfish. And then we've got Mehdi Nazir, who's a philanthropist and an addict. So the philanthropist means she operates her ministry with 0 cost, but she could vanish for a few turns occasionally, and no request can be fulfilled for that minister while absent. Approval in the minister's home province will steadily drop while she's absent. So that's something to keep in mind. And then we also have Tariq Badur, who is a liberal and religious. He's a maverick, which means he siphons small quantities from the treasury every month, but upgrades from his department will only cost favors, never cash. But because he's, I guess, the negative... I don't know. This guy has no obvious negative trait. He is Karifi, which I believe is like a minority group within Basenji. So apparently that's... I guess that matters in terms of political unity within the country. So let's take a look here. I guess I would want someone with lower construction costs in the Ministry of Development, because I'm assuming that influences like construction, I think. Responsible for transportation, health, education, and networks. Responsible for taxation and the regulation of your people's financial behavior. Responsible for policies pertaining to energy and natural resources. Transportation, health, education, and networks. I feel like that would be a good one to have someone who's frugal. Well, I don't know. I guess the question is, when I build new buildings, where's the expense lie? But I would guess either that or natural resources. Yeah, we'll go with development. Okay, so we're picking him, and again, he is a... What was his? He's a conservative secular in development. A resourceful moron. I don't know that I want that guy in defense, so he may not have a job. Popular, but he's also selfish. So if I ignore his requests, he becomes less loyal to me. That wouldn't be great for a military leader. But it's more of just loyalty, right? So I let's see here. 0 cost for the Ministry of Natural Resources. I'll go with that. Okay. So I guess we have to put Kareem into the finance position because that's all I have left. As long as it's only loyalty, I think I'm okay with that. As long as he's not like actually siphoning cash. And then I'll go with the conservative religious person as the Minister of Defense. Poor health, so he could die, which would be bad, but I'm not worried about him overthrowing me at least.
Very good. Know that every 12 months you may appoint a new cabinet minister for an unstaffed ministry, should you choose to do so.
I do think it's weird that you don't get a chance to fire your cabinet ministers. That's a little bit odd. From a gameplay perspective, I guess that makes some sense, but from a real life situation, your cabinet serves at the pleasure of the president. They have no power over the president. All right. The map is different. I did play the tutorial once before, so the map does appear to change every time you load into the game, which is kind of neat. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. More actions are given single action point.
The number of action points available is equal to the number of ministers in our cabinet.
So you can see you have action points down here on the bottom right of the screen. You have 4 action points per turn. I believe a turn equals 1 month. So we get 4 because we have 4 cabinet ministers.
I've learned that our national power plant has not received a fuel shipment in weeks.
The connecting roads were made unusable during...
By constructing a new road, oil will automatically be transported from the refinery.
Okay, so the important thing to keep in mind is you have power plants and you have oil generating facilities. Your power plant uses oil, but if your power plant isn't connected to your oil refinery, then you have no way to get oil to the power plant. So you do need to build roads. Infrastructure, it seems to be a very large thing in this game. Is really, it's about building up the infrastructure of your country. So you can see right here, this is the Petrogas refinery. So it's drilling oil, but it's not connected by any roads you can see around here. Meanwhile, this is the power plant over here, which has an oil demand of 140. It's not generating any power because it has no oil coming to it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to build a road, and that road is going to connect to the power plant here. I like straight roads, so let's do this. Although perhaps that's unwise because each one of those uses an
Building
action
roads
point,
costs
doesn't it?
1 action point per month and treasury funds. Note
Maybe
that
it
it is possible to both upgrade and bulldoze roads. Click on any road segment, including the one you just built, and select Upgrade in the road menu.
Okay, so it wants me to upgrade the roads, but the first thing I'm going to actually do is... Can I build this over here? Yeah. So I built some roads. I connected these guys back into the city so you can see into the main roadways. So you can see this is obviously Tajib and Adil are both connected via this road. And I connected that to the power plant. So these guys are all linked now. And what it wants me to do is it wants me to upgrade the roads. So I can go ahead and choose to upgrade a road section just by clicking on that section. And then I can choose to upgrade road. It costs 12 money, if you will. So I'm going to do that for this road as well. It costs 16 money to do that there. And you can see the road went from a dirt road to a paved road. The amount of traffic that you can carry on your road depends on how much you've upgraded. You use WASD keys to move around, so that's something to keep in mind.
Resource producers, power plants, and buildings that allow units to be recruited, that sort of thing. After the Civil War, the United Nations established aid camps to distribute food rations to our people. We must start to produce our own food and not rely on the UN. Constructing agricultural fields allows us to produce our own food for our people and have a new source of revenue to grow our treasury.
Okay, so one other thing to keep in mind is you do see these UN camps that are located around the map. This basically represents humanitarian aid that's coming in to help our country as a result of the Civil War and our overall, lack of development. Presumably from a political perspective, that's not super popular to be reliant on foreign aid from other countries. And so you can delete these things or demolish these things, but it does cost you political points to do that. Right now, it's going to basically walk us through building some agriculture because we don't actually have any domestic agriculture right now. We have no, what's that? It's like a nice little mine there in one of our neighboring countries, but we have no fields that generate food. So it's going to go ahead and walk us through doing that. So it's going to tell us to build some agricultural fields. They have to be built on green terrain here. So not desert, but green terrain.
We will need to ensure that there is a working population.
And we also need workers in order to work the fields. So on the top right here, you'll see each section. The Basenji consists of 4 different states. You can see Rumi, Korif, Kairak, Saba, and Banif, or Banifa. And you can see on the far right here is this little suitcase icon, which shows you how many workers you actually have available, idle workers who can do construction. And, that's what you can build buildings and stuff to construct things. And as you build new buildings, it requires workers. So you can see as we hover over this agriculture section here, it's land reserved for the cultivation of wheat, barley, lentils, fruits, and vegetables with space reserved for poultry farms. It costs 30 gold. That's the little B coin thing where it says 30. I believe it takes 1 turn to build, takes 2 electricity, and then it uses 1 worker up. So we're going to go ahead and build some farms. The question is, where do we want to build them? We've got 20 workers here, 18 workers here. We don't actually have a lot of farmland in this country. This is not I don't feel like this is a great spawn. We've got some nice land along the rivers, which feels appropriate, but then we don't have a ton of actual arable land here. The rest of this is all deserts and whatnot. So that's interesting. Sabia, meanwhile, has 1 city down here, and that's it. So I think that's where we're gonna, meanwhile, this state over here, Banifa, has 3 cities, or actually 4 cities in it, so I'm gonna keep the workers for that city. That'll be more of an industrial zone, I think. Looks like there's 2 cities here in this northern province. There's oil facilities and power plants, as well as 2 cities here in this eastern province, and then this coastal province here has 1 city. So it's I think it either makes sense to put it in Sabia or Rumi. And I think we're going to put it in Rumi. Although I probably will build a port there, but it looks like there's 2 cities in that other province. So let's go ahead and build some agriculture here. So we'll build 1 farm here. You can see we can only build it on green terrain.
That will need a road connection between these fields and our cities.
All right, so now it needs to, obviously any building you build has to have a road that connects it to the road network so that the food can get from the fields to the cities. Let's actually go ahead and build that now as it's telling us to. So again, you just click and drag.
Over time, Basenji cities will demand more than just food to stay content. Urban citizens who purchase these goods from our state-run producers put money back into our treasury.
So as you can see here, it's telling us that right now our people's primary concern is food. So if we...
As food supply increases, you can dismantle a UN camp. I would suggest doing this only once every few months, because removing UN aid workers will come with... For now, though, I think we can weather it.
All right, so the game is telling us to get rid of one of these UN camps. Basically, every 6, 7, or 8 months, you lose a pretty substantial diplomatic penalty by deleting them. Presumably the UN believes that they need to be here, and that's why they're here. And if we just start kicking out their aid, they may be like, well, what do you got, or what do you really have the best interest of your people at heart, or are you a tyrant, or what's going on there? So, you don't want to get rid of them too often, but it is telling me to get rid of one of them right now. I think we're going to make a little agricultural valley down here in this narrow green space. One of the other things the game was telling us is that you do want to gain more different resources over time. So we can produce food, we can produce processed food, we can produce household appliances, consumer electronics, and luxury goods. Those are all the sort of finished goods that we can produce in our country. Right now, our people demand 48 food. And we are producing 90, and so we're meeting our demands here. There are no demands for processed food, appliances, electronics, or supply chain. You can see the 0 of 0 of all of these. But as we come, further into our term, our people's expectations will increase. So that's something to keep in mind. Now back to the tutorial. We're going to go ahead and get rid of one of these UN camps. Just go ahead and click on the camp here. You can see it's a United Nations camp. Prosperity is decreased, I guess, when you have a camp. And then whatever these symbols are, I think they're for certain political parties. Our approval goes down. But it does produce 18 food per month. So we're going to go ahead and delete one of these now that we just built a new farm. You can see by deleting this,
action point to build a second
we used an
agricultural
action
field
point
to support the anticipated growth in our city's demands next month. Alternatively, we could address the health crisis currently facing the province of Sabah. Constructing a regional hospital adjacent to a city somewhere in this province, the choice is yours.
All right, so basically the game is now giving us a choice. We can either build a hospital in Sabah where the health situation is not great, or we can build another farm or another agricultural field in order to, increase our production and future-proof us against development. Let's go ahead and build a hospital. So we're going to go ahead and construct a hospital. You can see these are the options: the agriculture, the hospital. The hospital will increase health access by 2 in a given province. Must be built on flat terrain next to a town. Only 1 per town is permitted. Costs 38 gold. Uses 6 workers. So I'm going to construct it in a desert hex, so that way I'm not using up any other arable land. And you can see you've got to put it directly adjacent to a town. So we're going to put it near Rihad. Because I've got my people's best interests at heart.
Well done, Excellency. Thank you for putting your faith in me. You may have noticed that buildings consume both workers and power. Getting more power is a question of building more power plants. Getting more workers, however, is a much bigger problem. For now, it is prudent to spread your buildings out between your provinces.
Excellency, Sabria,
Okay.
apologies for the interruption. Our military is in
Okay, so of course the military advisor wants us to build some military buildings, but basically what she was saying is if you build too many buildings in one province, you can run out of these workers here on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see Sabia, where we just built that hospital, has 14. It had 20 before, but the hospital uses up 6 workers. And so if you run out of workers, you can get more workers. You can forcibly move people around your country, which may not be a good idea. Or you can try to bring more immigration in from surrounding countries, but that requires diplomacy to occur. So that's a more challenging proposition. In this case, our dude wants us to build a military base, because of course he does. We don't have any military bases here, so we can build one. It costs 50 gold or 50 money. Takes 2 turns, 5 power, 5. I think that's turns. Or maybe that's action points. And then it takes 5 workers here. So the question is, where do we want to put it? If I put it in Sabia, you can see our workers available drop to 9 in that province. That's stretching it a little bit thin, so I don't want to do that. And I like, by the way, when you hover up here on the upper right, it'll put the province you're placing it to and the new worker situation in red, based on where you're putting it. So let's see here. Let's put it up here in the north, I think. This northern province just has the 2 cities, although it does have the oil facility and the power plant. But it's mostly desert, so we'll go ahead and put it up here, I think. Although it does influence overall public security, so maybe we should put it in this province, because then that'll give us a wider reach of public security among these 4 cities. Although I don't like the idea of using up so many workers on it, but we'll do it. Maybe that was unwise. It doesn't look like it has that big a reach. All right, so now we're going to end the turn of March 2022. And we're going to move into April of 22.
Yusuf, the local news is reporting an industrious shepherd appears to have hybridized a bunch of old cars to
Okay, so apparently some shepherd made a hybridized armored bipedal tank, whatever the hell that is. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek, like silly stuff mixed in with some of the more serious stuff. Oh no, I made an armored bipedal tank and I've made a mistake.
Because it's awesome?
Yeah, you gotta love the military advisor. Just like, dude, that's awesome. It's an unlicensed vehicle. Can anybody help me? I'm stuck inside this bipedal tech. I've lost all system control.
Although this is probably also a threat to our national security. Thankfully, we can use that military base to recruit some new troops and send them to disable it. We will need to train.
Okay, so it's going to walk us through actually disabling this this unit. It's now an enemy unit, I guess. It's telling us that we don't want to use a SAM unit. So when you click on the military base, we've got 5 different things we can build. Infantry, mortars, tanks, airborne, or SAMs. But SAMs can't actually hit ground targets, only air targets. And so obviously it doesn't want us to build that. You can see airborne units are, I think they're basically just like rocket helicopters. Gives us 20, it costs 25 to build them. Armor's 25, mortars 15, infantry 15. I'm going to go ahead and buy some armor because, you know, what leader doesn't like an armored brigade? So if we go ahead and we click on this here, you can see this is the 33rd arm, and I'm pretty sure these numbers are random because it's the first military unit I built, but it's the 33rd Armored Brigade. And you can zoom in here and see they have tanks. I don't recognize those tanks, that model, or doesn't look like anything to me. But we'll go ahead and just right-click on the target, and our tanks will just move, and they'll go and attack the target here. So they attacked, the vehicle's destroyed.
We have pulled the very frightened shepherd from the wreckage. Hopefully his insurance covers all the damage he caused.
And so now it's like, okay, so apparently we didn't kill the guy. Thank you. Huh.
So much of my time thinking about how to create a giant
What's the, whatever you say, Boomer? What the hell is that? Was that for my soldiers?
Munitions. I never stopped to think if I should.
Oh, yes, so deep.
Right. Well, Excellency, this seems as good a time as any to introduce your ministries. This is where you set all the policies specific to our nation. Click on the Ministry of Finance for now.
Okay, so now it's going to walk us through looking at our cabinet and how we give different instructions to our cabinet and have them do different types of research and sort of help develop Basenji more to become a more advanced society. So we'll go ahead and click on the finance minister.
Tax policies regressive will increase our tax base if our people's prosperity is low. Our nation's liberals will absolutely hate this move, but maybe we can win back their trust in other ways.
So what it wants me to do to raise more cash is it wants me to set a regressive tax system. Basically, our country is poor, so we need to tax poor people more than rich people to generate more money, or at least that's what the game's logic is here. So if we go ahead and click hover over regressive tax system, it says wealthier citizens pay a lower portion of their overall income as taxes to ensure the majority of the population pay for the majority of the services consumed. Earn more from taxes when average prosperity is low, less when prosperity is high. So you've got 3 different tax things. You can do a progressive as well, which conservatives don't like. Basically, the more you make, the higher percentage you pay. Proportional, which is kind of like a flat tax. Everybody pays the same. And then regressive. So we'll do regressive because that's what the game wants me to do.
Good. Let's check in now with the Ministry of Defense.
So we'll go to the Ministry of Defense, and now we need to research new policies for our nation.
If you keep them happy by fulfilling the requests they routinely bring to us, that research gets completed faster.
Okay, so our cabinet ministers will ask us for favors and whatnot during the game. And so if they come to us with favors and we sort of meet their favors, they may research things more quickly.
The minister is of the view that we might be able to learn something from this bizarre incident with the armored walking vehicle.
You can choose which policy opportunities a minister is going to research by clicking on it. Choose a policy opportunity for the Minister of Defense to research now. You can even choose that silly bipedal walking tank. It means that much to you, but will probably need a lot of cash in a secret facility if you plan on going down that road.
All right, so you can see here, here's the different policies we have. We've got kind of more traditional stuff up here on the top. We have less, I guess, favorable options down here on the bottom. So we have, I don't know if these different policies change. Yeah, these policies, I wonder if they change the research available. You can see right now we've got national defense that's highlighted. And then we can choose conscription, which is obviously going to universally conscript folks. I'm assuming that makes some of our troops cheaper. Or maybe it just unlocks the conscription policies. Unit maintenance costs are halved. We can research long-range air-to-surface missiles that gives our attack helicopters better range. We can research chemical weapons, which apparently makes our mortar units more devastating. I don't know if this impacts... Yeah, activating this unlockable will result in extreme sanctions from the international community, so maybe a bad idea to do that. Anti-tank missiles, Tier 2 and 3 infantry units deliver more hit points against armor. Psychological warfare just costs some money. Forced relocation, which allows us to move workers around in our country if we want to do that. Veteran benefits makes the military very loyal to us, but it's very expensive. And then ground-based laser, an array of high-energy lasers specifically designed to destroy meteors. Apparently meteors are a thing. Meanwhile, on the lower section here under gray area, Manchurian candidate allows us to brainwash everyday people to become sleeper assassins. Advanced centrifuges, because who doesn't like their own clandestine nuclear weapons. Deus Ex Machina, which is the bipedal tank. Temporal displacement, which I'm assuming is some kind of mind control. Cyber division, which is, you can guess. CBRN response, which deals with responding to nuclear and chemical attacks. Recon training, which gives our soldiers more sight range. And then human factor intel. I'm going to go with long-range ASMs because I think helicopters are going to be something I'm definitely going to look at investing in.
Ministers who are not given research priority, we should suggest policy opportunity.
So I'm curious, though, again, like if we were to... I don't know if this uses an action point to select one of these. I think it looks like it does. It's got a little timer here. So again, I'm assuming if I choose different policies, that opens up different research, but I'm not really sure. Right now our policy is gray areas, which will skirt our obligations to the UN Convention on Torture. Otherwise, we have open authorized use of torture or rigid rule of law. But we can see now they want me to choose different stuff for my different ministers here. So we're going to go into our national resources or natural resources department. And we can choose to research stuff here. I'm going to go with infrastructure renewal. So you can see we've got wind power, hydropower, solar power. Infrastructure renewal permits greater financial investment in provincial conservation budget than previous limits. There's also deregulate fishing, which increases prosperity and jobs, but hurts the environment, as well as climate leadership. Green economy, strip mines, although strip mines could be useful. Ecological impact surveys, carbon market, vehicle inspections, or electronic waste. Apparently, if we do electronic waste recycling, it improves our relations with China. I don't... Okay. Well, let's do infrastructure renewal. So that's our natural resources policy. Our finance is, we've already set to regressive tax system, but we need to go ahead and research like an actual new policy here. So let's do, I think, state investments, maybe? Or prohibit unions, workers' compensation. None of these things are super popular. We can counterfeit American dollars, by the way, which gives us a ton of money, but it's not super smart if we get caught. We could regulate cryptocurrency. It reduces prosperity but gives us some cash. We'll do state investments. Defense we've already chosen, and then development. So this is sort of infrastructure development type stuff. So we can research toll roads, bus fleets, electronic charging stations, remove speed limits, research a spaceport, transportation hub, extended runways, which increases legal immigration and urban approval, tunnels, internet surveillance, privacy laws, spectrum auction, and rural internet access. So, spectrum auction, that's kind of funny. As someone who works in wireless. That's expensive. Makes rural approval and entertainment go way up. Let's just go with extended runway. It'll improve legal immigration approval and also urban approval without any cost. I mean, there's a slight cost.
Will be conducted faster when the minister has a great deal of respect for you. Unhappy ministers may not do any research at all.
So apparently ministers will research or do their jobs better when they like me.
Our economy is
So now it wants me to review my budget, so go in here.
I've got some more ideas on how we can increase it nationally. A lot of things outside of our control can affect Basenji's monthly revenue. City growth, immigration, the price of commodities, our transportation infrastructure. So what you're looking at is our minister's best estimates based on a snapshot of the country as it stands today.
Lowering provincial expenses helps a little, but it will also take its toll on the general well-being of those provinces. But look at these ministry expenses. You may want to change some policies in the Ministry of Development later on. Ongoing unit maintenance costs are something to keep a close eye on as well. It's better to use a few units well than grow a bloated military.
Because we have a Minister of Finance, we also have the option of taking out loans in the forms of bonds or an IB.
Inevitably, the best way for us to have nice things is to find resources elsewhere.
We may need to consider a few temporary provincial funding cuts until we get the economy jump-started.
Okay, so what they want me to do is basically balance the budget. Right now we have a -3 income per turn. We do have 339 in the bank, but we have a -3 income per turn. You can see our income is 108. Mostly that's all coming from income tax. We can go ahead and sell food, and we can go ahead and develop, oil and other industries and make money that way and through trade and other things like that. But right now our income's 108. Our expenses are 111. You can see the regional budgets are eating up 60 of our income. Military units 1, development in ministry 24, citizenship 2, and defense 11, finance 6, and justice 2. Here's the provincial budgets over here on the right. So right now, every item in each province is being spent at a level of 2. So that's a level 2 development, which is underfunded, but not like dramatically so. And so we can choose to cut conservation spending to the bare minimum if we want to go ahead and balance our budget. So we can cut conservation funding to 1 in each one of these provinces and basically say screw the environment. It'll make the Liberals unhappy with us, but it allows us to maintain the funding on tourism, subsidies, education, health, and public safety, while also giving us a +2 income per turn. So that's what we're going to do. Another option that the game mentioned is you can issue bonds, which is basically taking out debt that you pay out at a 17% interest rate, or you can take IBRD loans, which I'm assuming is like, IMF loans or something like that, International Monetary Fund type loans. But we'll go ahead and confirm those changes.
Click on the Palace at Mijimur.
All right, so one of the other things you do in the game is you can go ahead and purchase civilian workers. So just as we purchased a military unit here like the 33rd Armored Brigade, we can go ahead and purchase civilian workers to try and help build Basenji up. So you can train facility inspectors who kind of help root out corruption. You can train palace guards, which I'm assuming are, better infantry that will help protect myself. I'm assuming I live in this palace here. The palace is the former palace of the former king and is now the residence of our glorious leader. That's me. And I can also train research surveyors who kind of go around the country looking for new oil and other things like that. So we'll go ahead and train a research surveyor. And now it's going to tell us to kind of move ahead to the next month. I am going to go ahead and I don't know if I can tell him to move yet. I can. So I'm going to tell him to move to that question mark, which we're going to be looking at next turn. But I believe there's going to be some oil just north of Mejimira. So we'll move forward to the next turn.
Good morning, Excellency.
Click on the surveyor you've just trained to reveal all the potential
Okay, so basically it's saying this is how you develop new natural resources, is you go ahead and you send your surveyor out to a question where there's a question mark. And so he's located right here. He's going to survey and see if there's oil, bauxite, gold, or uranium on this deposit. And we discovered a deposit of oil here, so that's good news for us. That means we can go ahead and put an oil refinery there, and then we can start to export that oil to make a little bit of extra cash. All right, so we discovered oil here. You can see the radius that this surveyor can pick up. I don't see any other question marks here. So just so we sort of close off the bottom of the map, let's go ahead and move him south and see if there's any other deposits down here. I'm going to sort of close off the bottom of the map here, and then we'll move them back north just to sort of do something a little bit, approach this a little bit more scientifically.
Let's build a new refinery.
All right, so now what it wants me to... Oh, is there more potential resources up here? Maybe I should have moved them up there. But you can see now it wants me to construct an oil facility here. So there's an oil refiner here, processes crude oil into more useful... So it's kind of doubles as both an oil well and a refinery. But you can see here we'll go ahead and construct it on oil, and then we're going to start generating some additional oil for our economy.
Now our nation has 2 oil refineries. One is sending oil to our power plant. Perhaps we can sell the oil from this one to one of our neighbors. At least while we don't have a demand for plastics yet in Basenji. Click on the diplomacy.
Okay. So it wants me to click on the diplomacy screen so we can start exporting this oil, but the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to build some roads. So let's go ahead and connect this oil facility out to our main highway over here. Cost us 2 gold, and now it's producing oil and dropping that into sort of our reserves or whatnot.
Relations with those other nations we share a border with. Our relationship will depend greatly on their interests, which are not immediately known. In addition to their relationship with us, these neighboring take notice as well of the 3, if anyone. Let's see if any of our neighbors happen to have.
So you can see here are the different countries that are located around our borders here. So you can see this is Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, and Babelstan. You can see these different countries. You can see the relations with us. So these guys have a 47% ambivalent relationship. We have a poor relationship with Tajikistan. Azerbaijan, we have a polite relationship with, 62%. All these countries are stable nations. I guess it means defined interests, or I guess it just means they're unlikely to collapse, which can actually influence immigration. You can see there are different, priorities or pieces of information that we need to uncover with these countries to determine, like, what do they care about, what is their interest. You can see on the far right here, there's the 3 great superpowers in the game, USA, Russia, and China. If we piss them off too much, they could invade us, and we can also have relations with them and do different things with them, so that's something to keep in mind. But right now what the game wants me to do is it wants me to call these guys to sell our oil here. You can see the trade availability for each one of these countries. Babelstan, for example, exports aluminum, consumer electronics, gold, household goods, oil, and processed foods. What do they want to buy? They want to buy bauxite, food, gold ore, and luxury goods. You can see Tajikistan, they export food, gold, luxury goods, and processed foods, and their demands are consumer electronics, gold, and household goods. And then you can see Tajikistan, or I guess Azerbaijan, they export consumer electronics, food, and processed food, and they want to buy aluminum, gold, goods, luxury goods, and oil. So that's why we're calling them. So we'll go ahead and call. You can see here, this is the leader, the Prime Minister, Rajid Nazarian. Greetings, Excellency. My name is Prime Minister Rajid Nazarian of the Free State of Azerbaijan. Congratulations on your recent election. The people have chosen wisely by making you their head of state. Our 2 nations have a proud history of mutual cooperation, so please don't hesitate to contact me for anything you may need. So you can see they're a stable nation, and then you can also see that they have a polite relationship with us. So we could work on setting immigration quotas, which will allow more immigrants to arrive to our country. But what we're focusing on right now is trade. It also gives you a nice little write-up up here on the upper right about the country. But let's go ahead and click on trade. So we want to export, and then we want to export oil. And we can offer to export up to 45 oil per turn. And then that will generate up to 7 income per turn. You can see the current spot price that they're going to give us is 0.165, proposed quantity, anticipated export capacity. If we don't have a road with them, by the way, we can't trade with them. So I guess it's giving us this warning because right now we don't have a road connecting to this country, but we'll worry about that later. Okay.
We have used up all our actions for this. Let us reconnect.
Okay, so he basically said, okay, we'll do that. We can then repeal our trade agreements later if we want, but he basically said we'll do that, and it improved our relationships with that country, and apparently we accomplished an objective, so we got 20 gold. So our income, by the way, if we take a look at our budget, is going to go up by 3 this turn, it looks like, so we had a little bit more money. I don't have any money that I can use or any points I can use to connect us to that country, so we're going to have to wait until next turn to connect with these guys. They're over here, so you can see we have no road connection with these guys. Or actually, no, it's not that country. They're down here in the south. So we basically just need to build a real short road linking these guys here. I don't know if I can do that right now. Oh, I can. All right, so even though I had no action points, I still was able to build that road. And then we'll upgrade it as well. So now we have an open trade lane here so we can get more money. And actually, that means our money, because we can export that oil now it says our budget next turn is going to go up by either 7 or 13 gold, somewhere in that range. So you can see the immediate impact in the budget of those exports. We're exporting 7 gold, so our income is actually going up because of that.
Good morning, Excellency. Very good. Make sure your surveyor is on his way to find new resources for us. Over time, resource-producing buildings will experience corruption. Greasy hands will start cutting into our national bottom line.
So as they're saying, we have to worry about corruption over time, so we need to have inspectors go to these different facilities, make sure nobody's skimming any money off the top. So we're going to purchase that facilities inspector.
Surveyors,
Excellency, Sabria. Apologies for the interruption.
BLF insurgents.
Again. Intelligence reports that a small contingent of rebels and dissidents calling themselves the Basenji Liberation Front are on the move toward what's left of that armored bipedal vehicle.
The Basenji Liberation Front? They're a small union of various interest groups with the united goal of destabilizing our democracy and removing you from power. What could they want with a pile of metal junk in the deep desert?
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps they want to use the metal bipod armored tank thing against us.
Regardless, reports indicate they are armed and we must respond with force, Excellency. If the public feels we can't keep them safe, our units start fiercely loyal to our regime, Excellency. Just be sending units on suicide missions, making poor choices,
oh
and making
no.
our nation into a laughingstock may result in
If
our
I send my
soldiers
troops on
starting
suicide missions,
leadership
they may not
and
like
side
me.
with the enemy.
So they might turn on us.
Every unit can only attack once per month, and we're anticipating at least a couple targets. We may need to field more troops. Eliminate the BLF units before they are able to reach the wreckage.
Alright, so we basically have to eliminate these insurgents down here. You can see they've got a ranking of 3 hit points. So does our armor. Our armor has 2 loyalty, by the way. So you can see, as he's talking about, your troops can gain or lose loyalty over time. So that's something you want to factor in. I'm going to go ahead and purchase an airborne unit as well. So we're going to have some helicopters. I'm already researching those rockets for those guys here, the long-range ASMs. So it makes sense to raise some of those. First things first, though, let's get the 33rd Armored Brigade and go ahead and right-click here to attack these guys. So you can see these guys move in. They're going to go ahead and shoot at these guys. They're going to take some RPG fire. They lose 1 casualty. They inflict 2 casualties on the enemy. So you can see the hit points dropped by 1. Their loyalty stayed the same. The enemy loses 2 of their 3 hit points. And then I'm going to use this airborne unit, the 60th Helicopter Squadron, to go ahead and hopefully finish these guys off. It's a little bit... All right, let's click here. So right-click to drag and attack. And I think this little red like skull and crossbones thing is what it's telling me it estimates I'm going to kill. So if I hover over here, it says 1. If I hover here, it says 1. It showed 2 when the tanks were going to attack. So I believe that's how many hit points they're going to take out of the enemy. So go ahead and hold, drag, and right-click. And you can see the guys rocket that insurgent, and that unit is destroyed, but we've got another enemy insurgent group over here. That's all of those unit movement points for that turn, however. Let's move our surveyor down here to the south. I don't think there's probably anything over this way. I think if resources are within a certain range of a city, they may show up. At least it did show resources up there, so I'm not sure. Let's move this factory manager close to that oil facility as well. All right, so I think that's going to do it for this turn in terms of moving units around. I could buy another unit, I guess. I just don't know what the right, like, mix of armored forces are. Yeah, let's do a mortar unit. Let's see how they work.
Excellency.
So the mortar unit's estimating it'll take out 2 of the enemy insurgents. So go ahead and move these guys over here. I'm curious how far they can engage from. Oh, there you go. The mortar's fired. And we hit those guys. I love the sound effects, by the way. Those are pretty good. So you can see we took out 2 of the 3 insurgents. I don't want to build too large an army, so I think we'll do 1 infantry. That's probably all going to be all the military I'm going to build for a while here, but 1 infantry unit and 1 artillery unit, 1 armor unit, and 1 air unit. Seems like a pretty balanced military to build up here. Doesn't look like there's any stacking. I can't put units on top of each other. We've used all our action points. We are still turning a positive income this turn. You can see +6 income, despite the fact that we've increased our military upkeep a bit. Let's go ahead and move toward July of 2022. So the enemy is plotting.
Good morning, Excellency. Every unit can only enter.
All right, so it's going to give me the same info as last turn, but you can see the insurgent moved adjacent to this this bipod vehicle. Bipod tank.
On our way.
If they run their BLF, oh boy. Oh, they got like little red beret type deals almost. Huh.
Excellency.
All right, so let's go ahead and use our artillery again. Boom, they're dead. By the way, I don't know if loyalty base of 2 is the max. I'm not
It
sure.
would be prudent to have forces spread throughout the nation to address whatever threats may come our way.
Excellency, as important as our national defense is, I will show you how to stay in power with the balance of differing interests. Let's start by examining how we are doing, province by province. The upper graph shows your current approval levels in Benefa by demographic over the past 10 months. If they get too displeased with you, the rebels will be emboldened. The lower graph shows that province's ratings for prosperity, education, health, safety, the environment, and entertainment. Keeping these from getting too low in all 5 provinces is going to be crucial if you want the people to stay content. In many provinces, our environmental ratings are falling. A few are getting particularly low. Let's talk about what we can do about that. Traffic congestion can restrict the flow of goods, and more importantly, drag down your regional environmental, entertainment, and prosperity ratings. Let's check the traffic lens to see if this is the case.
Okay, so we can make people unhappy by having traffic jams, but you can see that's not really the issue right now. When we click on this little traffic icon, it can show the roads are pretty much not congested. They're pretty much green. So we know that it's not an issue of congestion.
At the provincial level, you can increase funding. At a nationwide level, we can make some policy changes. They might not cost
So we
us
can
any
build
money.
gardens, we can build other types of buildings to improve our environmental rating. We can also increase funding for environmentalism in our particular provinces. Our Ministry of Natural Resource can ration power or have a stewardship perspective that allows us to remain, pro-environment as well. So it's basically just trying to tell us there's a lot of different ways that you can actually address concerns from environmentalism. So if we look on the top right here, we can see this is the provincial overview. You can see the prosperity scores, the one with the bar on the moving left to right with the sort of bar graphs. You can see the prosperity levels pretty low in 3 of our 5 provinces. 2 of them have better prosperity. The second one is safety. That's pretty good in all of them. Health is not great in Sabia, but it is good. It is at least not bad everywhere else. So it looks like red is really bad, orange is poor, and then white I'm assuming is average. I'm assuming it'll go green when it's good. But you can see here the environmental ratings in Kareem and Sabia are both pretty poor, so we could try and improve that environmental performance there just by building new buildings there. But as you also remember, we did cut funding to those guys. So if we want to go ahead and right click here, you can see these bar graphs that show us popularity from the different groups. So, you can see rural, urban, secular. We can remove those by clicking them as well. And you can see those popularity ratings over time. Look like they peaked maybe right when we started the game, because this goes back 10 months. But you can see they're on a bit of a decline for most of these groups. The immigrants are declining the most, which is interesting. Meanwhile, on the bottom here, you can see the overall safety score, environmental score, prosperity score, all of those here. And you can see the environmental one takes a pretty steep dip when we stopped funding environmental policies within our particular provinces when we cut those budgets here. So we can go ahead and review the budget, and if we want, we could increase that conservation, that environmental score back up. It would siphon off a fair bit of our cash here. Right now we've got a positive cash flow of about 9, per month, but if we go ahead and we increase this in every province, that's going to drop down to just 4, but it will get our conservation back in line with everything else. So hopefully that does improve environmental ratings.
Results of these improvements. So, as a longer-term goal, I would suggest you think about building more agricultural fields, a plastics factory, and a manufacturing plant with a view to getting processed food production online. But notice the resource production and demand. The right number represents how much of that good is demanded by our cities at this time. It's possible for us to produce more than what is demanded. When this happens, consider exporting the surplus to a friendly neighbor. This is how we make money. Tax dollars will not be enough. We need to start building production chains to manufacture processed foods, household goods, consumer electronics, and luxury goods. Sell them to our neighbors at first with trade agreements. Then, when urban citizens start to demand them here, we will sell to our own people as well. Processed food should come first. Hold the mouse over the processed food icon in the right sidebar. Processed food is going to require more farms, more oil refineries, a plastics factory, and a manufacturing plant. We will also need them all connected by roads. Thankfully, we already have extra oil that we're exporting. If you construct a plastics factory and manufacturing plant and connect them to the road network, the oil will automatically be diverted to plastics production while you send our surveyor to seek out new deposits.
Okay, so what it wants me to do now, basically it's sort of talking about building up your economy and your production chain, and that's how you become prosperous. So it's pretty adamant. Income taxes won't be enough. You need to focus on producing these different resources that are located here. The next one it wants me to produce is processed food because we can export that. It's also a good that our cities eventually will demand. If we hover over this processed good food supply chain, you can see in order to do that, we need to develop agriculture fields, which we have. We need to develop oil field refineries, which we have. We then need to do a plastics factory, which, by the way, the interesting thing here is you can also see that that little truck symbol in sort of blue is indicating that we're exporting 48 oil per turn. But you can see if we stopped exporting, or if we built a plastics factory, we could divert that oil to the right, to the plastics factory. Then between the plastics factory and the agricultural field, those would come together on the manufacturing plants, which would then allow us to build processed food, which would then move to our cities or potentially be exported. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, and I'm not sure it matters where we construct it. It wants us to build a plastic factory. Feels to me like it would be logical to put that right next door to our oil facility, close to the city in any event. Although it would leave us a little bit low in workers in this province, but we'll do it anyway. What's the point of having cities if you don't use the workforce that you've got there? We need to go ahead and build roads to connect these guys because they're not connected to the road network, so we'll go ahead and do that. And now these guys are connected. Shouldn't be missing. There's a road right there. Maybe it'll drop out next turn. But we also still need to build a manufacturing plant, so this is going to be a little bit... This actually has to be in a city, doesn't it? So the manufacturing plant, presumably because it needs extra labor, has to be in a city, so we'll go ahead and build that there. And so you can see here we're burning through our workers in this area pretty heavily. But we're gonna, when we build a factory, we have to tell them what we want them to build. In this case, we're gonna build processed foods. So we'll go ahead and end this turn now that we've used all of our action points.
Fantastic. Any food or processed food purchased by our citizens or by other countries is money that goes straight into our pockets. Keep an eye on your production chains and aim to produce at least 8 good. Over time, you should be surveying more.
As important as our economy is, we might also want to consider as a longer-term goal trying to grow our intelligence.
And finally, keep an eye on your work account. The only way to get more workers in Basenji is to open the country up to more immigrants. And that's something you need to negotiate with. Immigrants are valuable members of our society, but if our relations with their country of origin go poorly, you can expect their approval of our government to falter as well.
I note that there are certain emergency measures.
He's talking about the military orders to move population around.
In the event of a worker.
They're ugly solutions. Talk about them if it becomes necessary.
I think we've bombarded our glorious...
Okay, so that's the tutorial, guys. So you can see here that we've completed the tutorial. We've built these factories. They're now producing manufactured food. Looks like they're only producing one this turn. It did basically end our trade, though. You can see we don't have any trade siphoning off in the oil refineries here. If we go to the budget, we can see here that our income is now 0. It's flat. We have no exports at the moment, but we are generating some food from our food industries by selling it, so that's kind of balancing off the loss there. We still have 184 income currently, or more money currently in the bank. You can see here the different levels of prosperity and whatever up here in the upper right. And now we're really just ready to go. I mean, we're ready to go ahead and play this, outside the tutorial. So this looks like a pretty interesting game, guys. I know, it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's kind of a country management game with heavy RP elements. I know there's a lot of different like cutscenes and other things that come back into the game as events and other things unfold. So that'll be fun to see how that unfolds. It's not just, our advisors are still there, so that's all going to continue. But I think we'll pick that up next time. I think my plan is actually to live stream this tonight. So if you guys are interested in seeing this a little bit more, tune into my Twitch channel. Link is in the description. Between 8:30, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time tonight, I plan to live stream this, and I'll see you guys there. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.